This reception ceremony marks the beginning of official talks and discussions that the Prime Minister will have with President Reagan and other American leaders. This is the diplomatic entrance of the White House.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States and Mrs. Reagan.
After cloudy weather and rains yesterday, it is sunny in Washington. Although the city can be fairly warm and humid this time of the year. On the left of President Reagan is Mrs. Selva Roosevelt, Chief of Protocol. The President will escort the Prime Minister now to the Vice President and Mrs. Bush. The Secretary of State, Mrs. Schultz, and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. They go up to the podium for the national anthems of the two countries.
Ladies and gentlemen, the national anthems of the Republic of India and the United States. That is the 19gun salute to the Indian national anthem.
The sound that you hear is from the fife and drum corps, comprising soldiers in their attire worn at the time of the American independence over 200 years ago.
Prime Minister Gandhi, Nancy and I are delighted to welcome you to the White House. And let me add a personal note. It is good to see you here again as leader of the great Indian democracy, which provides a unique opportunity for us to broaden and deepen the dialogue we began last autumn in Mexico. Through our talks, we can help to reach a renewed recognition of the mutual importance of strong, constructive ties between India and the United States. In searching for words to describe the focus of your visit to Washington this week, I came upon a statement that you had made in Delhi when Roy Jenkins visited in 1980. And at that time you said, "The great need in the world today is to so define national interest that it makes for greater harmony, greater equality and justice, and greater stability in the world." Well, that is more than an eloquent description of enlightened national interest. It can also serve to describe the foundation of the relationship between the United States and India, a relationship we seek to reaffirm this week. A strengthening of that relationship based on better understanding is particularly important at this time. Your father once said that the basic fact of today is the tremendous pace of change in human life. The conflicts and the tensions of the 1980s pose new challenges to our countries and to all nations which seek, as India and the United States do, freedom in a more stable, secure, and prosperous world. As leaders of the world's two largest democracies, sharing common ideals and values, we can learn much from one another in discussing concerns and exploring national purposes. From this understanding can come greater confidence in one another's roles on the world stage and a rediscovery of how important we are to one another. Prime Minister Gandhi, we recognize that there have been differences between our two countries, but these should not obscure all that we have in common, for we are both strong, proud, and independent nations guided by our own perceptions of our national interests. We both desire the peace and stability of the Indian Ocean area and the early end of the occupation of Afghanistan. We both seek an equitable peace in the Middle East and an honorable settlement of the Iran-Iraq conflict. We both seek a constructive approach to international economic cooperation, building on the strong links even today being forged between the economies of the United States and India. Beyond that, India and the United States are bound together by the strongest, most sacred tie of all, the practice of democratic freedoms denied to many peoples by their governments. My devout hope is that during this visit, we can weave together all these threads of common interest into a new and better understanding between our two countries. Welcome to the United States.
Mr. President and Mrs. Reagan, to me, every journey is an adventure, and I can say that this one is an adventure in search of understanding and friendship. It is difficult to imagine two nations more different than ours. As history goes, your country is a young one. Over the years, it has held unparalleled attraction for the adventurous and daring, for the talented as well as for the persecuted. It has stood for opportunity and freedom. The endeavors of the early pioneers, the struggle for human values, the coming together of different races have enabled it to retain its elan and dynamism of youth. With leadership and high ideals, it has grown into a great power. Today, its role in world affairs is unmatched. Every word and action of the President is watched and weighed and has global repercussions. India is an ancient country, and history weighs heavily on us. The character of its people is formed by the palimpsest of its varied experiences. The circumstances of its present development are shadowed by its years of colonialism and exploitation. Yet, our ancient philosophy has withstood all onslaughts, absorbing newcomers, adapting ideas and cultures. We have developed endurance and resilience. In India, our preoccupation is with building and development. Our problem is not to influence others, but to consolidate our political and economic independence. We believe in freedom with a passion that only those who have been denied it can understand. We believe in equality because many in our country were so long deprived of it. We believe in the worth of the human being, for that is the foundation of our democracy and our work for development. That is the framework of our national programs. We have no global interests, but we are deeply interested in the world and its affairs. Yet, we cannot get involved in power groupings. That would be neither to our advantage, nor would it foster world peace. Our hand of friendship is stretched out to all. One friendship does not come in the way of another. This is not a new stand. That has been my policy since I became Prime Minister in 1966. No two countries can have the same angle of vision, but each can try to appreciate the points of view of the others. Our effort should be to find a common area, howsoever small, on which to build and to enhance cooperation. I take this opportunity to say how much we in India value the help we have received from the United States in our stupendous tasks. I look forward to my talks with you, Mr. President, and getting to know the charming Mrs. Reagan. I thank you, Mr. President, for your kind invitation, for your welcome and your gracious words. I bring to you, to the First Lady, and to the great American people, the sincere greetings and good wishes of the government and people of India.
The tone of the talks between the Indian and the United States was set by Mrs. Gandhi as she arrived at the Andrews Air Force Base at the American capital yesterday evening.
Okay, this is a test. This is bars and return, bars and return. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the White House.
She was received at the airport by the Secretary of State, Mr. George Shultz, and his wife. The Assistant Secretary of State for Near Eastern and South Asia Affairs, officials of the Indian Embassy and their wives.
I'm delighted to be here in Washington, and I look forward to meeting the President and exchanging views with him and having talks on many matters of interest to us and to the world.
One reporter wanted to know if she was disturbed by the present state of affairs between the Indians and the United States. The Prime Minister later took off in the helicopter to the Washington Monument. The Prime Minister arrived in Washington from New York, where she reached on Tuesday after an 18-hour flight from New Delhi. One of our major engagements was the visit to the United Nations to meet the Secretary General, Mr. Perez de Cuellar. Prime Minister and the Secretary General were together for half an hour, during which they reviewed the world scene. Mr. de Cuellar appreciated India's consistent support to the UN as a prominent leader of the non-aligned countries. He mentioned West Asia as one of the primary concerns of the world body at the moment. Later, Mrs. Gandhi presented to the United Nations an image of Surya, the sun god. It is a piece from the Pala sculpture from the 11th century.
Your Excellency, Mr. Secretary General, I am glad to present to the United Nations, on behalf of the government and people of India, this piece of ancient sculpture representing the rich cultural heritage of my country. Surya, the sun god, who is the subject of this sculpture, is depicted in our scriptures as the lord of what moves and what stands still. He is a source of life and energy. He illumines the mind and instills the sense of dharma in us. Dharma means law, virtue, and righteous behavior. As these noble principles reflect the ideals which the United Nations has set before itself, it is perhaps appropriate that this sculpture should form part of the precincts of this world body. It is a manifestation of India's commitment to the United Nations and to the harmonious coming together of the human family. Today, as other sources of energy are being depleted, people are turning once again to the sun to sustain civilization. So, this Surya is not only a symbol of an ancient faith, but of hope in the future. May Surya light your way, the way of this great organization, and strengthen your noble endeavors in the cause of peace and friendship.
Madam Prime Minister, it is for me a great pleasure and privilege to welcome you in this house and to receive from you this most beautiful present, which is one more contribution of your great country to our organization. This time it is an artistic contribution, but you have already made so many contributions to the United Nations. Your illustrious father and yourself, Madam Prime Minister, have always given to the United Nations their great support. And around I see so many Indian faces, which are really among the best contributions we can get from your great country. I think that this beautiful sculpture of Surya could be for all of us a permanent source of inspiration, and that's why we all, on behalf of all my colleagues and on behalf of, I am sure, of all members of the United Nations, we say you, thank you, Madam Prime Minister.